vinyl friends and vinyl community. It's Brian from Brian's Vinyl Records, and I am here today to talk about one of my favorite things. If you couldn't tell by my attire, we're talking about 1990s grunge rock music. Grunge rock, what can you say? I'm a child of the 80s and 90s, and my most musical time of my life was probably the late 80s, early 90s. I was in middle school and high school at the time, really got into music, started playing guitar, and things took off from there. So to say grunge had an impact on me and my life would be an understatement. Going into the 90s, I was coming out of a phase of listening to pop music, a lot of top 40 stuff. Michael Jackson was my favorite artist at the time. I listened to a lot of the New Kids on the Block, Paula Abdul, Madonna, all that kind of stuff that you would hear on your top 40 radio stations. And when the 90s hit, I all of a sudden started listening to heavier things. I got into AC/DC, Poison, Metallica. Metallica came a little later, but Poison, AC/DC, Bon Jovi, Firehouse, those were big in my middle school years. Really got into those. So my thing was that 80s and 90s hair bands and metal like that. Those were my big things. When 1991 came, 92 came, and Nirvana hit the scene, and everything changed music-wise. By 1993, my favorite radio station, the heavy metal hard rock station, had been reformatted to alternative rock and grunge. So I was reluctant to switch over and adopt grunge as a music type for me at the time. It took a little while, but we'll get into that. So here's my favorite grunge albums from the 90s. You got to start things off with the one that started it all. You can't deny that this had a major impact on the music scene. Of course, we're talking about Nirvana's Nevermind album. When this came out, I was very resistant to it. Obviously, as I stated before, heavy metal was my music. That is what I wanted to listen to, and this changed everything for that genre. It basically ushered it out for quite a long time and replaced it on all radio formats. I listened to it. Teen Spirit didn't really do a whole lot for me other than the cool guitar riff that you could play on your guitar as a guitar player. Didn't do a whole lot for me, but the rest of the album, I just really enjoyed it. And it took me a while to admit that I enjoyed it. But, I mean, songs on here like Breed is one of my favorites. Lithium is great. Drain You. In Bloom. Just all fantastic stuff. And so I quietly bought this and hid it away for a while as one of those albums I really enjoyed. So you got to start with Nirvana, Nevermind. This was a game changer for the music industry and really brought the genre to forefront. If Nirvana was my resistance, this is what broke my back. Pearl Jam came out with 10. I got this from Columbia House as an accident, and my friends were really digging it. And so I heard it, and I decided to keep the album and listen to it and fell in love with it. It's just a fantastic album. Alive is one of my favorite tracks from Pearl Jam. It's just a fantastic groove. Even Flow was all over MTV at the time. Jeremy became a huge hit, especially with the controversy of the video. Once is a great tune. There's just so much good stuff on this album, and when Black finally made the radio, that became a massive hit as well. So this is what finally broke me into giving grunge music a chance, was Pearl Jam. Now, if Pearl Jam broke me and got me to listen to it, this is the band that hooked me and kept me coming back for more. Alice in Chains. This is the album. Facelift I knew from Man in the Box because the band I was in at the time played that song, but I really didn't listen to a lot of that album until after this came out. Once this came out, this was a game changer for me. This is probably, of all the grunge albums that are out there, probably the one I love the most. It's just an interesting record. It's so heavy in topics. It's so dark and deep, but the music is great. Wood on here was a favorite song of ours to play as a band. Loved playing that song. You got Them Bones, you got Angry Chair, you got Rooster, you got Down in a Hole. I mean, just an absolutely masterpiece of an album. So Alice in Chains' Dirt really, really kept me coming back for more grunge after that. Next up, I want to talk about the Stone Temple Pilots. Now, Core is a fantastic album. It was a great first album for them to put out. I don't have it on vinyl. It's very difficult to come by and super expensive when you do come across it. I saw it locally at a record store recently, and it went for, I think it was $100, and that's way above my budget. I have to really, 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 really want that album to even consider dropping $100 on a single album. But this one is my favorite Stone Temple Pilots album. This is Purple, and this was the lead single off this was Vaseline, which is an absolutely fantastic one. But this is the album that I would listen to over and over and over again in my car, on my stereo, in my bedroom, on my Walkman, all that stuff. This is just an absolutely wonderful, wonderful album. And it's definitely one of my top picks from the grunge era. This is a band that I didn't get into a lot, and I enjoyed. I liked the songs I heard on the radio and all that, but I just never really bought any of their stuff. And I'm now, as an adult and collecting records, I'm kicking myself for not following them even closer. I'm talking about Soundgarden. To me, this was one of the bands that people really liked from the grunge era that I just never got into, never really understood. But I'll tell you this, from the opening riff of this album of Rusty Cage, it hits you in the face and it knocks you dead on the floor. What a fantastic album. I always had this album, I just never really listened to this album, and as I got older and started really looking back on music that I listened to, this is one of my favorites that have come out of that now that I'm older. And I've only got this one and the follow-up to this, Super Unknown, from Soundgarden, so I need to invest in more Soundgarden going forward. But great album. Yes, this next one has a love-hate relationship. I love the album. Absolutely love this album. This is Smashing Pumpkins' Siamese Dream. It became quickly one of my favorite albums of the grunge era until I went to Lollapalooza that year and saw them live. Now, I don't know if I just didn't get it at the time or if Billy was just having an off night, but I absolutely hated the concert that night at Lollapalooza. I hated it so much that I walked out. This is why I went to Lollapalooza, was to see the Smashing Pumpkins. They headlined with the Beastie Boys that year, and I was so disappointed. I walked out on them, sat on the curb outside of the gates and waited for my party to come out. And I found out later that they had walked out too and were waiting at the car. I eventually made my way back to the car, and we all complained about how awful that was. And for years, in fact, for about 20 years, I never listened to these guys, other than hearing what was on the radio. And my girlfriend at the time really was into Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, so I would hear parts of that. But for 20 years, I wouldn't buy their albums. I wouldn't do anything to support them. And really, until probably 2 years ago, I kept that grudge going until I finally just said, this is stupid. And I picked up this album. It was at Barnes & Noble's, and I had a 30% off coupon and another 10% members discount. And I used both of those to make this a reasonably priced album, because this is a very expensive album. And happy I did. So I'm trying to find more Smashing Pumpkins. I love their newest release that they did. I got Billy Corgan's latest album as well, and that's really good too. So I need to get back into the Smashing Pumpkins and listen to a little more of them. That's my Smashing Pumpkins story. This one is great. This is a band that I still haven't gotten into enough at all, if at all, really, I can say. I got this as an accident album again from Columbia House, and I really enjoyed 2 songs off this album right away, and in all, this is an absolutely fantastic album. This came up online about 2 years ago, and it was for sale in Fargo. I had a buddy of mine go get it for me because I'd never seen it on vinyl, and super happy I did. They just released these again. They put out, I think, 4 albums from Dinosaur Jr.'s this era, and put them back out on reissues, so they're out there. This one I picked up. This is from a 2017, I think, pressing. I can't remember, but absolutely sounds great. It's a great album. Feel the Pain and I Don't Think So, the first two songs on the album, were the ones that drew me into these guys, and then I just never followed up with it, and I think that's kind of sad. My brother-in-law is a massive Dinosaur Jr. fan, so I think I'm going to have to borrow some of his Dinosaur Jr. and get back into these guys, because this is a great album. Here's one I was super pumped about getting at Record Store Day last year. This is Seven Mary 3, the American Standard album. The people will know Cumbersome off of this album. It's a great song, but this album in general is fantastic, and this press that they did for Record Store Day is unbelievably good. The sound quality on this is superb. They did an outstanding job, and I think here, let me see, War God is the company that released this, and I gotta say, props to them. They did absolutely fantastic work on getting this album out and putting it quality sound on it. Great album, great band, really enjoyed that. This is a band I never got into at all, and just picked this up because it was on sale, and of course the song on here that I really like, let's see here, what is it, Nearly Lost You, was on it. Now I have Nearly Lost You, I believe, is on the single soundtrack as well, but for the price that they were selling this for, I figured I might as well pick it up, and I'm glad I did, because this is actually a really good album. So this is a Screaming Trees, Sweet Oblivion. Fantastic repress that they've done on it, and it sounds really good. So I need to listen to a little more Screaming Trees, I think, because this is a band I don't really know much about. I know they're pioneers here and people really like them, so I'll have to give them another shot. This was another Record Store Day release, which I'm really excited to get on red vinyl. This is Collective Souls, Hints, Allegations, and Things Left Unsaid. What a fantastic album. I love the cover of this thing. I think it's really cool. And the name, I mean, who names an album that long? Unreal. But they did, and they put this out, and of course on here, Shine was the big hit off of here. Let's see, what else was on here? Yeah, that might be the... I can't remember if there were any other singles off this, but Shine was a massive hit. I remember as a guitar player, a young guitar player, I always wanted to play this riff, so I spent a lot of time just jamming this riff over and over again. And even to this day, when I detuned my guitar, I played this riff quite a bit. So great album, loved having it, Collective Soul. And in the same vein, we're going to go with Candlebox. Candlebox, absolutely fantastic album. This one is a double album pressing, so this has You on it, it has Far Behind on it, and some other things, but it also comes with their second album, Lucy, which I can honestly say I'd never heard until I bought this. I think it's a decent album. A lot of people don't care for it too much, but this is the one I'm talking about. This is one of my favorites. This is just Candlebox's self-titled album. Really, really good stuff, so happy to have that. Alright, this next band I want to talk about, I mentioned that I went to Lollapalooza. It was 1994, I believe, and I talked about how the Smashing Pumpkins didn't blow me away. A couple other bands were on there. Beastie Boys, wasn't really into the Beastie Boys, so that didn't do much for me. But a couple other bands were there. I know Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds was there, and he came out, he was completely drunk, and to me he sounded like he was trying to be Jim Morrison the whole time, which I didn't know his shtick at the time. I don't know much about him still. I just know that there's a lot of people in the vinyl community who like Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, but I never really gave him a chance because I thought he was awful at the Lollapalooza show I was at. But that's neither here nor there. One of the bands that did impress me, and I really enjoyed that night, was this one. This is L7, and this album is Bricks Are Heavy. When they busted out Shit List, and they busted out Wargasm, they busted out Pretend That We're Dead. I mean, I was hooked on what they had to offer. So this is one of my favorites from the grunge era. This is L7's Bricks Are Heavy. It's fantastic. This is a fairly recent press that they did. It's cool. It comes on translucent green vinyl, and sounds absolutely fantastic. I know that they have been putting out some of their other stuff recently too, so worth picking up if you're into L7. This is absolutely great. This is a band that I categorize them as grunge. Some people may categorize them more of a alternative rock, but I think based on the guitar sounds alone, they sound like a grunge band. They're from Australia. They were a bunch of 16-year-old kids and whatnot when they started out. This is Silverchair's Frog Stomp. The song Today was Tomorrow. The song Tomorrow was absolutely fantastic. We used to play that in the band as a jam song. Actually, it was myself and my cousin would jam it all the time, had a great time with it, and just overall, this is a great album. This is one of the more recent MOV pressings. There are a lot of them that have come out recently, and you can get your hands on. This one comes on green, and it comes on... Oh, this one is all green. So you can get some that are green. There's some that are multicolored vinyl. There's a silver one that comes out, I think, next month. So they've been releasing this a lot, but it's a fantastic album, and MOV does not disappoint with this pressing. It's absolutely great. So very fun to have. Really enjoy myself listening to some Silverchair Frog Stomp. The last two I want to talk about are super groups that came out of the grunge era. The first one being this one here. This is Temple of the Dog. What a great album. This consists of members of Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and I want to say, I can't see, Soundgarden, man, I can't think of it now. My brain is not working. Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, I want to say maybe Screaming Trees. Forgive me if I got that wrong. But Chris Cornell, Eddie Vedder's on here. Guitar player for Pearl Jam is on here, Stone Gossard. And, of course, Jeff Ament of, at the time, Green River and Pearl Jam later. This is just really, really cool stuff. Great album. A lot of it was in tribute to Andrew Wood, who was this lead singer of Mother Love Bone, who died of a drug overdose. They were all very close in the Seattle scene, and they made this as a tribute. Say Hello to Heaven was one of the songs that was written as a direct tribute to Andrew Wood. So fantastic album. Love having this in my collection as well. And last but certainly not least, another super group that is absolutely awesome. This is Mad Season, and the album is Above. This consisted of Lane Staley in this one. And again, my brain is not working. I should have written this down when I did this, but I didn't. You got Mark Langen took over on vocals when Lane Staley passed away. You got Mike McCready of Pearl Jam in here. You've got John Baker Saunders and Barrett Martin on drums. Great album. The song River of Deceit is still one of my favorite songs from the grunge era. Would play that at my acoustic shows with my buddy Matt when we did those. Just a really great song. So great album. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane and some of my favorite grunge albums from the 90s. There's a lot more awesome grunge albums out there. A lot of them I don't have. They're kind of hard to find. They have been reissuing a lot of them lately, which is very exciting to me. So I have been filling some holes in my collection with those. But love grunge music now. Resisted at first, but quickly fell into line. It's so much fun to play, so much fun to listen to, and so much fun to just rock out to. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new, hit that subscribe button below. And if you would like, leave a comment to whatever some of your favorite grunge bands or albums from the 90s. I'd love to hear that. Always looking for suggestion of other grunge bands to try out that maybe I didn't showcase here. So thank you again for watching, and until next time, keep spinning vinyl, friends.